So I have not done this in a while. Seems like a week or two. So welcome to Uncle Freezy recording an audio podcast for all my audio podcast listeners. To all my YouTube family, what's good, what's good, what's good. I'm going to record this and then I'm also going to rock right after this. And then I'm also going to rock, or the plan is to rock with BK Steph at 7 p.m. right here on Blowing Tears. And so it's going to be a busy 7 hours of so back to back. So I'm going to start with this though. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to start with the recording of the audio podcast for all the audio podcast listeners. And this shift, I guess what I'm calling it, is gonna, as he unprofessionally moves away from the microphone to talk. All right. All right, here we go. This is more like it. So David L is in the building. Kenny Payne is in the building. Dripmore is in the building. All right, so with 13 days left to the trade deadline, I have to start talking about what the Knicks may or may not do based on what other teams in the NBA may or may not do, depending on if teams are buyers or sellers, right? Because all these things intermingle and have effects, or one team's move will impact another team's move in a butterfly effect type scenario. Right. Let me first start with my New York Knicks. And let me first start with my New York Knicks. So last night, my New York Knicks beat the Boston Celtics in overtime. I think it was like 120 to 117, something like that. The game itself, this game 50 of the NBA season for the New York Knicks and Boston Celtics was a game of thrones, so to speak. It was a game of thrones. The Boston Celtics in pole position in the Eastern Conference is basically in ownership of the Eastern Conference throne. They are the Eastern Conference champs. They are in they are contention to repeat as Eastern Conference champs. They have competition for their seat. The Brooklyn Nets of the world, the Milwaukee Bucks of the world, and then in their rear view mirror are the Philadelphia 76ers of the world, and way back in their mirror are the Cleveland Cavalier types, the Miami Heat types who are going to get it together. And then way back way back, that tiny dot you see in the mirror is that group of New York Knicks, Atlanta Hawks, Washington Wizards grouping. Way back, that tiny dot in the mirror is that group. Indiana is 9. I don't think they survive. I think the injury to their point guard is going to derail their season at game 50. At game 50, they can't afford to go into a slump. Now is not the time to slump. I think they may get caught by the Chicago Bulls who are leaking oil, by the Toronto Raptors who may decide to blow it up and tank, and the Orlando Magic who, if they get a point guard, may have something to say. YC is in the building. White Falcon comes in the door and says, blue tears, orange tears, Blanche tears. Bim. Right? I feel you, boss. Soul Finger is in the building. So a bunch of teams. Yo, Stafford Don is in the building. My half brother, Stafford Don, is in the building. What's good, Stafford Don? Stafford Don is in the building. What's good, bro? Stafford Don didn't even tell me happy birthday, y'all. I think Stafford Don has something against people born in the 60s. Stafford Don is like, I only bless up people born in the 80s, the 80s and up. That's it. Shout out to my man Stafford Don. Keith Turner is in the building. All right, let me get down to the nitty gritty, right? So what I'd like to do is be patient with me, Knicks fans, right? I want to say this thing about the Game of Thrones, which was Game 50 last night, the New York Knicks and Boston Celtics. For the Boston Celtics are now 35-15. The New York Knicks are now 27-23. And in this Game of Thrones type scenario, the New York Knicks outlast the Boston Celtics. And here is where things get weird. The Boston Celtics didn't execute well last night in a lot of sets. They just toyed with the Knicks off of talent alone. Early. I'm talking about early on. Early on. They did clean it up later. And Staffordon says, happy birthday. Appreciate you, Staffordon. Staffordon. Mind you, the Boston Celtics were without Marcus Smart, one of the better defenders in the NBA. Okay. So the Celtics were not at full strength. But the New York Knicks were missing another one of the better defenders in the NBA, in Mitchell Robinson. So the Knicks were not at full strength. Game 3 in this affair, let's call it affair. Let's call it an affair. Game 3 in this affair will definitely determine if the Knicks are serious players or if they caught the Celtics on an off night, right? The first time we played the first time we played, which happened in Madison Square Garden, the Celtics came out with the same blueprint as they came last night, bombing 3-pointers, hoping the Knicks would go away, and the Knicks did go away. That first game, the Celtics came out on fire from three and kind of blew the doors off the Knicks, and the Knicks struggled to catch up for the rest of the game. Last night, the Celtics came out with the same blueprint, bombing away from three, and this time, the Knicks were resilient. The Knicks were resilient, right? Julius Randle probably played his best game of the season, even though his rebounding numbers were not there. But Jericho Sims had a great rebounding night. I think he played to a stalemate with the Celtics' young up-and-coming center, Robert Williams. And if Jericho Sims can continue to elevate his game to play to stalemates with pick and roll centers, then Jericho Sims has arrived. You heard me. If Jericho Sims can play like this every night, then Jericho Sims has arrived. Y'all heard me. Jericho Sims may have arrived. He only needed playing time. And and to his fortune and Mitchell Robinson's misfortune, sometimes sometimes the occurrence of an injury is all a player needs to step up and show what he can do if given a lot of minutes or playing time and role. Right? But Julius Randle last night played, to me, the best game of this season. And I know he may have scored more points in the game. I think he had a 40 and 15 game already this year. But I saw with my own eyes Julius Randle dunk on Jason Tatum. I saw with my own eyes Julius Randle in the same game dunk on Al Horford. I saw in the same game Julius Randle hit 2 clutch free throws. The Knicks down 1. Randle hits both free throws to give the Knicks a 1-point lead. I saw in the same game Julius Randle hit 5 3-pointers. But wait, there's more. While RJ Barrett didn't have the best shooting night, and while I saw RJ Barrett get bullied a lot last night, for the most part, his defense wore down Jaylen Brown. So RJ Barrett had a terrible shooting night, right? So what? We're not saying that RJ Barrett never has bad shooting nights, right? RJ Barrett last night was 6 of 18 from the floor for 19 points, right? But RJ Barrett, to his credit, was a plus 14 in the plus minus, which is odd seeing that most of the starters were maybe negative. RJ Barrett was a positive, a net positive last night. But that's not the most impressive thing. The most impressive thing is Jaylen Brown was 8 for 22, 1 of 8 for 3. And here's the most important part. Jalen Brunson was 5 for 5 from the free throw line until it came time for him to knock down free throws to ice the game. And he missed both. Finished the game 5 of 7 from the free throw line. Right now, how does that impact 13 days to the trade deadline and who are the Knicks and all of this stuff? I'm not gonna say this game here was a measuring stick game, right? Not gonna say this game was a measuring stick game, right? But what I will say is that I would take RJ Barrett 6 for 18 if an opponent superstar is shooting 8 for 22. I'll take it. I'll take it. Right? I'll take that. Especially if a high powered offense and pretty good defensive team can be neutralized so that we can beat them on their own floor. I'll take that. I'll take that. So, how do I feel about the Knicks today? You guys know, and I say this not to be funny or deferential or disrespectful or, as clickbait. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to be honest with you. After the Knicks failed to seal the deal for Donovan Mitchell, emotionally, I became apathetic to the goings on, to the transaction part, to the season, really. Like, I'm going to root for my team, but I'm not going to invest in anything. I'm in a wait and see holding pattern, right? Not going to get too high, not going to get too low. Just let the season play out. Whatever happens, happens. And I think a lot of Knicks fans are doing the same. They just won't admit it. Notice there's no bing bong, bing bong. We're not a bad team anymore. Bing bong, we're 500. None of that anymore. Um, I say that so when I mention everything else going forward, you'll understand the reasoning behind it. So I've been saying it since September. 50 games in, I'm still saying it. 82 games in, I'll still be saying it. When the playoffs get here, I'll still be saying it. The offseason gets here, I'll still be saying it. Right? Here's the thing that I want to mention. I don't know how many teams in the NBA are buyers at the moment or sellers at the moment. This picture won't clear itself up probably until right before the trade deadline. Right before the trade deadline, teams will know if they're going to spend the assets that they have or save those assets for a later date. I think you can, for the most part, the bottom dwellers, are going to be sellers, though. Detroit is probably going to trade Bogey, their Bogdanovich, right? Charlotte is probably going to be selling off pieces, right? Houston, San Antonio will probably be selling off their pieces, right? But for the most part, 22, I'm going to say there are going to be anywhere from 15 to 22, 24 teams that are going to have their name heard or said in trade discussions. And I don't blame those 15 to 24 teams. I don't blame them. Right? But what do the Knicks do? Here is my totally honest opinion on what I feel like the Knicks should do in the next 4 games, right? The next four to 5 games. A, assess what your season goal is. Assess what your season goal is. B, assess if your young players are giving you enough to help with your season goal. That's it. It's simple. A and B. Over this next week, let's just say next week. Let's not say that many games. You want to give yourself a cushion to execute a deal, right? What the Knicks should be doing is assessing what their playoff goal is or their season goal. Is your season goal to just get better from game to game? And if that is the Knicks' goal, you shouldn't make a trade. Just evaluate the team for the rest of the season. Right? If the Knicks front office, if the goal is to assess this team, don't make a trade. Right? Just assess the roster the rest of the season. See how far this roster can go. Right? But be honest with Knicks fans. Don't say one thing while you mean another. Right? We don't need the hidden ball trick. We don't need 3-card Monty right now. Right? We don't need all of that. As Knicks fans, we don't need that. So part one is, if you are only choosing to assess this team going forward, don't make a trade and continue to assess this team going forward. I don't care nothing about the Cam Reddish rumors, and I don't care if Evan Fournier is not getting minutes. I don't care if Derrick Rose is unhappy with his role. If you are assessing this team, continue on your current path. If that is your goal, don't deter. Don't basically stay the course. Whatever lane you're in, stay in that lane. Basically, right? Now, here's the thing. If your goal is a different goal from that, if your goal is to make the playoffs, right? If your goal is to make the playoffs only, if your goal is only to make the playoffs, then do a minor move, right? Continue to play your young kids, get them experience in high leverage games. Like last night, Paris Duggar, last night, Jericho Sims played in a high leverage game and maybe played one of the better games of his career in a high leverage game. Quentin Grimes in a high leverage game left some shots, some things out there to be desired, but he got experience. And that's key. Miles McBride got experience in a high leverage game. Grimes and McBride probably didn't give you the performances that they wish they could have. Jericho Sims did. So what is one high leverage game? We're not indicting them. We're not saying that they're bad players. We're not saying that we should have got more from them, and we probably should have got more from Grimes. Grimes had some shots where if he made a couple of shots, then this game doesn't go to overtime. But he's a young player, and you don't throw him away. It's a learning process. You got to be careful how you deal with kids, right? Because he can easily go from being a key contributor for the rest of your future to a Landry Shamet in a blink of an eye, just like that. Just like that. If you use or misuse a kid, there because the Clippers, if you remember, the Clippers were higher on Landry Shamet than they were on SGA. And they misused Landry Shamet. And then the next thing you know, Landry Shamet's a journeyman and SGA's a star. So you don't want to mess up Quentin Grimes' trajectory, right? You mainly want to make sure you want to ensure that you protect this kid. He's a grown up, and I understand he's not a kid and blah blah blah. But what I'm saying is let's not have one game where if he would have done one thing this way or that way, then a different outcome. We look at him different. It was a learning experience, and these kids have to learn. So don't throw them away. Don't go all in the chat, all in the chat like, yo, if Grimes don't start hitting big shots, man, what we need. No, let's not do that. Let's continue to give him experience in high leverage games, and that stuff will come. That stuff will come. Just be patient with him. Mr. Vince is in the building. What's good, Mr. Vince? I see you. Mr. Vince in the building. What's good, man? So be patient with Grimes. Be patient with McBride. Be patient with Sims. What I will say, though, is if you're just looking to make the playoffs, right, then maybe bring in some bench help, not to take minutes away from the current contributors, you know, not to take minutes away from Grimes, McBride, Sims. Bring in some guys that can kind of contribute in spot minutes, right? There's that part of it, right? Now, here is the perspective I think the Knicks are at right now. This is where I think the Knicks front office is right now. I believe the Knicks front office wants to make noise in the playoffs. I think the Knicks front office wants to make noise in the playoffs. I think the Knicks front office wants to be either the 4, 5, or 6 seed in the playoffs and catch a sleeper, catch a Cleveland, catch a Philly, right? That's what I think the Knicks want to do. I think the Knicks want to catch a Cleveland, catch a Brooklyn, maybe catch it. that I don't think they want to see the Celtics or the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. Period. Don't think that happens. Don't think they want to do that. Right now, the standings in the East are Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Cleveland, Miami, New York, Atlanta. 9 and 10, I don't care. Those are playing teams. I don't care. 9 and 10, who cares? Philly is the number 2 seed, right? The Knicks are number 7 right now. I don't think they'll stay at 7. I don't think they'll stay at 7. I think the Knicks will probably finish 5th, is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that the Knicks are probably going to finish as the 5th seed, right? Probably catch maybe a Brooklyn in the first round. Maybe catch a Philly in the first round. I don't, however, think the Knicks can finish higher than 5th. I don't see the Eastern Conference finishing Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, Knicks. I can't see that right now. Will it change? Potentially. So if that's the case, if that's the case, I believe this front office believes that they are one player away from being a team that can go on that run and capture that 5th seed and stay there with the arrow pointing up, right? I don't think the Knicks front office is sitting on their hands. I think the Knicks front office believes this team is a winner. And if RJ Barrett can get his offense consistent, the Knicks will be the team that nobody wants to see in the first round. If we get 80% of what we saw from Brunson and Randall last night, every game, with the roster for the most part staying healthy, I don't think these teams in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference want to see the New York Knicks in the first round of the playoffs because the Knicks offer odd matchups. Who on Boston can guard Julius Randle? Right? Who on Philly can guard Julius Randle? Who on Brooklyn can guard Julius Randle? Who on Cleveland can guard Julius Randle? Who on Miami can guard Julius Randle? Who on Atlanta can guard Julius Randle? See this game we play? See this game we play? So even if even if see this game we play, the only defender in the Eastern Conference I think can neutralize Julius Randle is Giannis Antetokounmpo, but who but I still think even then, I think Randle can get his against Giannis. against Bobby Portis, against Brook Lopez. And trust me, in a series against Milwaukee, they will be rotating all three of those guys onto Julius Randle. And for that reason, I think the New York Knicks front office may be looking at calling in some reinforcements. Not trying to find a player better than Julius Randle, but a player or players that can space the floor and not allow double teams to come towards Julius Randle. For that reason, I think the Knicks front office is going to go out and get a guy or guys or players to prevent teams from doubling Jalen Brunson, from stacking the paint against RJ Barrett, from double teaming Julius Randle with the zombie doubles. The zombie double where they put a small player on Randle and then they bring a guy across the paint. Look at me, Randle. Randle, look at me. I don't know. I might come double team. I might not. And then Julius Randle holds the ball because he don't know if the guy is coming or not. And so for that reason, my belief is that the front office is going to go out and be active. Go out and get a defender that can shoot the three. And I think where there's smoke, there's fire with the Grayson Allen thing. And trust me, if the Knicks get Grayson Allen, Quentin Grimes is going to the bench. And that may be in the best interest of him and the team long term. Short term, right? Because those threes that Grimes got last night, I'm confident that Grayson Allen will knock down those open looks and defend Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum or whomever on switches. Right now, or at least as of this week, Grayson Allen was the number one player in the league in terms of defensive rating. Grayson Allen was the number one player in the NBA in terms of defensive rating based on volume, based on playing. There can be some guys on the list that they have a high defensive rating, but they played 10 games and they defended 35 shots and they have a high defensive rate. No, Grayson Allen is a starter on a team that's defensive minded. I think the Knicks, where there's smoke, there's fire. The Knicks never tip their hand on a guy and then not pursue him. When have you ever seen this front office show interest in a player and not pursue him? Never. This front office is super quiet. This front office is super quiet, but when they do look to pursue, they do it. They go after their guy. You saw it, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson. You don't hear about the Knicks going after a guy and not getting him, aside from Donovan Mitchell, which is still upsetting to me. But for the most part, yeah. Yeah. So if you hear about something, if you hear that the Knicks have interest, if you hear, and trust me, you heard it here first. You heard it here first. You know, you guys know I don't shoot you the gas, right? You heard it here first. I think this front office is a bridge front office. I think this is the front office bridge to say like a Bob Myers type front office, right? And you also hearing it here first that the Knicks don't tip their hand unless they are going after a guy. You heard it here first. You heard it here first that the Knicks should pursue Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott. You heard that here first. So when I tell you that the Knicks don't tip their hand unless they are hot and heavy after a guy, they are hot and heavy after a guy. So if you hear Grayson Allen rumors, you can believe that they are after Grayson Allen. Now, mind you, I'm not Adrian Wojnarowski and I'm not Ian Begley, right? I'm not, right? I'm Uncle Freezy, right? I believe this Knicks front office is in the mindset that they want to make noise in the playoffs. So you may see two or three moves, not all trades, but moves. You may see two or three moves, not all trades, mind you, because all moves are not trades. You may see them do one big uneven move and then make other moves to fill in the roster. On a separate note that's probably attached to this, I wouldn't mind seeing the Knicks go after Grayson Allen and OG Ananobi. And I know OG Ananobi is a touchstone for a lot of us. Because if you go get OG Ananobi, that means Quentin Grimes is no longer a starter. Right? And if you go get OG Ananobi, some of the valuable young pieces that we have on the roster may go in exchange for OG Ananobi. And I don't mind, to be honest with you. Like I said before, I'm a little a lot apathetic to the Knicks not trading for Donovan Mitchell. So whatever they do this year, I don't mind. Whatever it is they do. Whatever it is that they do. I don't mind that. My personal favorite move would be to go get Jonathan Isaac. That is my heartstring at this moment. Because I think he gives you better defense than OG Ananobi, but he is also injury prone. But I think Jonathan Isaac gives you more star upside, and he's from New York. What move would you like to see the Knicks pull off? Or would you like to see the Knicks stay the course? What move would you prefer? Or would you like to see the Knicks stay the course? I think the answer to that should be easy. Excuse me. The Knicks should be busy at the trade deadline because you cannot take seasons for granted. We took a season for granted last year and it backfired in our face. You cannot, when you're building a culture, you cannot take any season for granted, ever. Every season should be centered around building towards a championship. Phone never stops, man. The phone never stops. I'm sorry, y'all. You can't take any season for granted. Every season should be approached with the mindset that you're building towards a championship. So if you're with that said, that's my personal opinion, right? With that said, I think the Knicks front office is approaching this season like that as well. The Knicks have to do something. They have to make a move. They don't have to sacrifice the kids. They could still play the kids. They could still play the kids. They can get Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Quentin Grimes, Mitchell Robinson, some help, or they can package some guys and go into the playoffs with a big four or an improved big three. What would you prefer? Would you be satisfied with the Knicks making the playoffs? Four more games of the Knicks, seven more games of Knicks basketball, 11 more games of Knicks basketball, right? If we're lucky, 16 more games of Knicks basketball. But how do we get there? I don't think this team can get there as um, currently constructed. They definitely have to go bring in some reinforcements. Definitely have to bring in some reinforcements. So, all right, y'all. I'm gonna stop right here. Thank y'all for watching. I'm gonna end this, upload this to the audio podcast platform, and I'm coming back with the live stream. We're gonna kick it. I'm going for next after this. Going for heads and necks. Thank y'all for tuning in, man. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all in about 10 minutes.